Welcome back to Season 6 of Cursed Destinations. We've reached Part 4, The Haunted Prison. This is a place where the guilty never find rest, and the innocent can't escape. For the next 5 episodes, we'll be locked inside, exploring the chilling tales of this infamous penitentiary. Tonight, in Episode 19, we confront a presence that has never left his post, the Warden's shadow. The man who ran this prison, Warden Silas Blackwood, was a figure of pure terror. His cruelty was legendary, his methods unspeakable. He believed that breaking a man's spirit was the only true form of rehabilitation. The inmates lived in constant fear, not just of their sentences, but of the man who held their lives in his iron grip. His footsteps echoing down the corridors were enough to silence the entire cell block. He'd peer into cells with eyes that saw right through you, finding fault where there was none, and delivering punishments that were both creative and sadistic. For years, he was the undisputed king of this concrete kingdom, his authority absolute and his heart made of stone. But even kings can fall. The breaking point came during the Great Riot of '58. Years of simmering hatred and desperation finally boiled over. The inmates, pushed beyond their limits, rose up in a wave of violent rebellion. The guards were overwhelmed, the gates were breached, and the prison descended into chaos. In the midst of the pandemonium, the inmates cornered Warden Blackwood. What happened next is whispered in hushed, fearful tones. There was no trial, no justice, only brutal, swift revenge. They say the inmates didn't just end his life. They wanted to erase him, to bury his tyranny once and for all. They dragged his body to the very heart of the prison, tore up the cold stone floor of the central rotunda, and buried him right there under the feet of the men he had tormented for so long. They sealed the floor back up, hoping his evil would be trapped beneath the concrete forever. But some things can't be buried. Some evils are too strong to be contained by stone and earth. The prison was eventually retaken, the riot quelled, but a new, more sinister chapter had begun. Blackwood's body may have been gone, but his presence remained. Every night, as the final lock clicks shut and an unnatural silence falls over the cell blocks, it begins. A shadow detaches itself from the deeper darkness of the halls. It's tall, imposing, and moves with a purpose that is all too familiar. It's the Warden's shadow, still walking his rounds, still enforcing his brutal discipline from beyond the grave. The guards who have seen it describe a chilling sight, a perfectly formed silhouette gliding silently along the walls, pausing at each cell. It peers in as if inspecting the inmates, its formless head tilting slightly. Sometimes, a cold gust of wind follows it, carrying the faint metallic scent of old blood and the faintest whisper of a guttural command. The shadow doesn't just observe, it punishes. Inmates who have been disruptive during the day wake up with unexplained bruises, scratches, or an overwhelming sense of dread, feeling as though unseen hands had gripped them in their sleep. One night, a young, skeptical guard named Miller decided he'd had enough of the ghost stories. He was working the late shift when he saw it, the distinct, dark figure moving down C Block. Determined to prove it was just a trick of the light, Miller followed it, his flashlight beam cutting nervously through the gloom. The shadow moved with an unnatural speed, gliding towards the end of the corridor, towards the infamous Cell 9. This cell had been sealed for years, its last occupant having taken his own life under mysterious circumstances. As Miller got closer, the shadow slipped right through the solid steel door of Cell 9 and vanished. Miller stood there, his heart pounding in his chest. Just as he reached out to touch the cold metal door, it slammed shut with a deafening bang that echoed through the entire prison, the bolt shooting home on its own. He was locked in the corridor, alone with whatever was inside that cell. He spent the rest of the night huddled at the far end of the hall, praying for morning. The next day, the captain of the guards opened the corridor. Miller, pale and trembling, explained what had happened. With a heavy sigh, The captain and two other guards unsealed cell 9, prying open the door that had been welded shut for decades. When they shined their lights inside, the cell was empty, covered in a thick layer of dust, except for one thing. On the back wall, a new shadow was painted against the stone. It was a perfect silhouette of a man, cowering in fear. And unlike the other shadows in the room, this one didn't move. The story doesn't end there. The Warden's shadow, where this happened, is now known as the Warden's shadow. And the tales from within are even more terrifying. Scared yet? If you crave more chilling tales from the darkest corners of the world, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell. Thank you for joining us in the shadows. We'll see you next time.